Uyghurs are a Turkic-speaking Muslim minority in China, living mostly in the sensitive frontier province of Xinjiang.
And the Chinese government has been treating them absolutely terribly.
These are some of the suspected detention camps where an estimated 1 million Uyghurs are held. Many of them have not been heard from since being detained.
Pretty much everyone has someone that they know who has been taken away. My husband received a phone call from a police official who said that he wanted to meet with my husband and that he had a few questions to ask. And they said that they were coming to our house. So they came into our house, and the first question they asked my husband was, "Have you been overseas?" So my husband was like, "Yes, I've been overseas, like I've traveled to Turkey." And then as soon as they heard that, pretty much they didn't really ask any other questions. They took my husband's passport on the spot and they said, "You need to come back to the police station with us." And that's when we got really, really scared, and we were like, at that point my husband was begging and he was asking, like, "Can you please just ask me the rest of the questions here? Why do I have to go back to the police station?" And we were all kind of crying and we were really scared. And the police were like reassuring us, saying, "Oh, don't worry, we're just going to ask the questions at the police station, and then within a couple of hours you get to go home." Obviously this was all a lie. This was my husband's first detainment. He got questioned at the police station for 3 days, and then afterwards he was taken to a detention center and he was detained there. His first detainment, it lasted just over 2 years. So for 2 years, I wasn't able to see my husband. And then it was on May 22nd, 2019, when my husband, he called me himself through their app WeChat, and he told me that he had been released. No one at that time knew about what was going on in Xinjiang. The government was trying to keep this all a secret from the outside world. They didn't want anyone to know that there were these camps. During his time in the detention center and in the concentration camps, he tried not to talk about it too much. Obviously, it was really traumatic for him, and because it was all still very new, him just being released, I was like, I don't want to force him to talk about it too much if he doesn't want to. But he did manage to speak about it like a little bit, and he said most of the torture that he endured in there most of it was like psychological, where they'd pretty much, all the detainees would get told every day, like, "You're never going to see your family again, you're never going to leave this place, you're joking if you think you're going to get out of here. You guys are all going to rot in here, and the only way you're getting out is if you die." And he said that any time if anyone misbehaved or didn't listen to the guards, their food was taken away. So he said most of the time it was really difficult because they weren't given food, so they were starved a lot. And if one person in their cell misbehaved, then the whole cell would suffer the same consequence. He didn't know what he was eating most of the time. Obviously then we heard reports about the detainees being given pork and stuff like that, and I asked him as well, I was like, do you think you ate pork? And he's like, "To be honest, I probably did. I didn't know half the time what I was eating, like I couldn't recognize the meat." But again, they were forced to eat it. So when they were given the food, if you didn't eat it, you were also punished. My husband did tell me about this one time that he accidentally spoke in Uyghur, and one of the guards heard, and then they handcuffed him and they kind of strung him up on the door, and he was left there for a whole day. He wasn't given any food or water. He wasn't allowed to go to the toilet. They kind of just hung him up by his hands on the door, and they left him there for a whole day. Hearing that, it was just obviously like it was just so devastating, and I was like, is there anything more that he's not telling me? You know, because I mean, if they did that, they possibly could have done other stuff too. And my husband was still kind of having nightmares, you know, every night about, you know, everything that he had to endure. All of a sudden one day, the police came on the night of May 19th and they took him again. The second time he was gone for about just over 3 months. He was detained again. The first 60 days my husband was in solitary confinement. He said he almost went crazy in there. He was home for about a month, and then all of a sudden it was on the 26th of September, the next month, that police showed up again, and they arrested him again. They detained him again. This was the third time, and this time they took him to a different city. So currently my husband's being held in Harmi in a detention center. 6 months later, it was on the 1st of April 2021 that then I received the news that my husband had been sentenced to 25 years in prison. Once I received this news, I was so shocked. I didn't want to believe it. It just didn't make sense. Even like pretty much from the start when this happened, just none of it made sense to me. That how, you know, someone just for going overseas, how can someone be put through, you know, all of this suffering and all of this torture just because they had gone overseas? And mind you, he didn't go illegally. You know, he got a passport that was legal. He got a visa that was legal. He did everything in the right way, in the correct way. I've been silent these whole past 4 years. Like, I haven't spoken publicly about it at all, in fear that I would make things worse for him. And even in keeping silent, the worst thing happened, you know. So at this point, I was just like, I don't really have any other choice but to go public with this, to tell everyone what's going on. If he is in prison, then, you know, everyone gets visitation, everyone gets a phone call, everyone gets to see his family. He was sentenced in April. It's been over a month now, and we still have heard absolutely nothing from him. I tried to get the government to help me, and I haven't heard anything from them at all. And at this point, it's kind of just like, who can I expect to help me, you know? Like, all I want to do is I want to know that my husband is okay, that he's alive. Because obviously I haven't heard from him in all this time. I want to know where he is. I want to be able to have a way to contact him, to hear his voice, to know that he's someone doing okay. We've been married almost 5 years, but the time that we've been together, like physically been together, like in one place, it's just a little over a year. I think it's like 14 months. My husband, my people, they're being targeted based purely on their ethnicity, based purely because they are Uyghurs. We should have the same rights as everybody else. I want to be a voice for my husband. I want to be a voice for my people. If I can make even the slightest difference, if I can make something, you know, something good come out of this situation, that's essentially that's what I'm going to fight for, and I'm not going to stop fighting for it, and until my husband is released, and until everyone else is also reunited with their families.
Those women and those children and those old men that are being thrown in jails, there are fathers. There are children. There are bond to them is La ilaha illallah, which is thicker than blood.
We might not see the light at the end of the tunnel. We might not see the Uyghurs fully freed. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not create us to see that. Allah created us to do whatever we can, so that when we meet Him, we can say, oh Allah, this is what I did about the Uyghur situation. And perhaps in that is our salvation.